She started riding motorcycles when she was 7 years old. And then at age 17, she was in a race and she crashed. And her mom was in the stands, horrified because she passed out. So imagine that. Now, both mom and daughter are here with us today to talk about that terrifying experience and the wonderful mission that it inspired. Welcome to the Goddess Power Show. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins, and I interview trailblazing women who help us all boss up and live bigger, better, and bolder. That's why I'm so excited to introduce to you two amazing women, mother and daughter, Dr. Carey Monroe and her daughter, Morgan Monroe. Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
You're so welcome. I'm so excited by this story because it shows the power of perseverance and family law and overcoming potential tragedy and difficult circumstances. And then a life mission can be born of that. So let's go back, Morgan, talk about your passion for motorcycles and that day that you had the crash.
Well, like you said a little bit ago, I started racing when I was 7. My mom and dad both got me into it. My dad used to race, and I worked my way up as I got older. And I had just made it into the pro ranks that summer, right before I got hurt. It was in November, and I was racing in the pro class. And I don't actually remember exactly what happened, but I just collided with another rider and high-sided over the bike and hit my head. Broke my back, my shoulder, a couple of ribs, my left hand, and then I had a traumatic brain injury that caused me to have a stroke and temporarily paralyzed the right side of my body. So, yeah.
Oh, gosh. Okay, now let's go to mom. Mom's in the stands watching.
Mm-hmm. So we were in Savannah, Georgia, and they have a very large, fast track there and huge grandstands. So it was really cold that night, and I was up in the press box watching. So I was about as high up and far away as I could possibly get from that spot. But I was also at the corner where it happened. So I watched the whole thing unfold. I immediately stood up and yelled. And then I ran down the stairs as fast as I could and jumped over the fence and got over to Morgan, and she was passed out, and she had this incredible snore that sounded like a bear. I had never heard anything like it. Her helmet was full of mud and dirt, and just laying there face down, and she was out for about 3 to 4 minutes, and that was a really long 3 minutes. And I just immediately fell to my knees and started talking to her and started praying, and then the ambulance came because the ambulance was right there. That's one fortunate thing about motorcycle racing is you have an ambulance on site. So they came right over. Of course, a ton of people came over and surrounded us, and then she eventually came to, and they put her on a backboard, put her in the ambulance, where they had to cut off all of her leathers and her boots. And she was in incredible shape at the time. So she put up one heck of a fight for those poor ambulance people. They couldn't get an IV started, nothing.
Oh, you were combating them because you were in shock?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't remember any of it.
Yeah. So when you have a head injury, that's what happens. You have, you're completely disoriented. She had what was called a neural scream. So she was just screaming and kicking and didn't understand, any direction, anything like that. It was horrifying.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Were you in the ambulance with her?
Yeah, so they allowed me to sit in the front seat. I wasn't able to be in the back with her because she was practically destroying the back of the ambulance, for one. But for two, I was in the front seat. riding along with the driver, and I was trying to talk to her, yell back to the back. And, the driver kept telling me that she couldn't understand me. She couldn't hear me. It wouldn't do me any good. And it didn't matter. I still tried to talk to her and tried to let her know I was there and calm her down. And I immediately, I remember this like it was yesterday, before we ever even got out of the property for the racetrack, I called my mother, who is at my grandmother's house, and they're both devout Christian women. And I said, you need to call every prayer chain that you know, and even those that you don't, and you need to start praying right now. And that was pretty much all I could say. So
wow. Okay, so oh my gosh. So Morgan, what's the first moment you became aware of what was going on?
Well, the first thing I actually remember is leaving the hospital in Savannah, Georgia, and being loaded into the transportation van that took my mom and I straight to Mary Free Bed in Grand Rapids, Michigan, a couple hours from home. So it's actually kind of scary to think about it in that way. But the first thing I remember is being laying on the stretcher, being loaded into the back of the van, and then the doors shutting. So without any context, that could be, scary, but I knew what was, by the time I remembered it, I knew what was going on. So
when you got
that was 12 days later.
So you didn't remember the whole initial hospital stay?
I don't remember any of being in the hospital in Savannah at all. And I actually don't remember a few hours leading up to the race.
Oh.
The last thing I remember is checking heat races to see what race number I was in, and then went and got a chicken tender basket from the concession stand. And then nothing until I'm being loaded up into a van to head back to Michigan. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Dr. Monroe, what was going on during those 12 days?
She basically went back to about 3-4 years old for that period of time. Within an hour and a half of being at the hospital, they told us that we needed to prepare ourselves because she was never going to be the same. They said that the damage in her brain was all over her brain, including the frontal lobe, that she may have trouble with speech. She may not know who we are. She may never regain her motor skills. The next day, she stopped moving her right side of her body. So that's where we figured out that she had enough damage to the left side of her brain that caused a stroke. So she was paralyzed. We knew as a family that she was there, inside there somewhere, because she was answering our questions and she knew who we were and those kinds of things, but we took video and pictures just to remember and kind of remind her, I guess, what happened. And she was extremely combative and just it was very, very scary. That entire time was very scary.
Wow. So paralyzed on one side. Were you in any kind of like casts or no?
Nope. Everything that I broke couldn't really be, put into a cast. And then, my hand, but it was more of like bottom of my finger, I guess. So it was just kind of whatever. But everything else was just all just clean and just, healed on its own.
Wow. Okay. So Dr. Monroe, you're rejecting this prognosis there, right? Like, no, we're going to get her back. She's going to be healthy, right?
Yeah. One of the issues that we had was with a feeding tube. So they wanted to put a feeding tube in her, and I didn't want them to do that because I knew she could swallow. Like she had sips of water. Like they couldn't prove to me that her lungs were collapsed or she had big holes in her lungs, that kind of thing. So that was really my first fight at the hospital with the doctors and the nurses, and I kind of gathered them all around in the room and said, okay, this is not how this is going to go. I'm going to be in charge of this. And So they scheduled a swallow study for her. So you have to actually sit up in a hospital bed, and they have to x-ray you eating certain foods
What?
in order to prove that you can swallow without aspirating before
Oh.
they will allow you to go to like a soft food diet and not have a feeding tube. So my husband and I, thankfully, went downstairs in the hospital with her to do this swallow study, because she was just, at one point she was screaming, yelling, kicking at people with the leg that she had that worked, and all over the place. We were kind of the only ones that could like reason with her, basically. And so we were downstairs. This is kind of a pivotal moment for me, because we were downstairs in the hospital. The bed was broken that they wanted to sit her up in. So my husband had to fix it. So he fixed it. And then a gentleman who was working at the hospital, a tech, came along, and I heard him out in the hallway say, "We're going to put that in this bed," speaking about my daughter. And I heard him, and I said, "Yes, we are," with gusto. So we did. And we sat her up, and she was a very picky eater at the time. So part of the swallow study was, the first thing was applesauce. The second thing was mashed potatoes, which she hates and hates this day. And then the third thing was a chicken strip that they dipped in the chalky stuff that you can x-ray when it goes down into your stomach. So this nasty chalky stuff. So she didn't want to eat any of it. Well, they thought it was because she was out of control, but I knew it was because she did not like any of that food. So I got right in her face, and I held her face, and I said, "Morgan, if you do not eat this stuff and swallow it, you are going to have a feeding tube put in." And she took the chicken strip out of their hand and went, took a bite of it, chewed it up, and swallowed it, and then looked at me, and I was like, "See, she's there. She's there. She knows what's going on."
Yes.
So from that moment on, I was like, you know what? I'm her advocate, and I'm not leaving her side until she's well. Like, I'm just not doing, I just couldn't do it, because I couldn't, I just couldn't trust anyone out. It's just, that's your baby.
Right. Wow. Do you have any other kids?
Yes. I have a son, and he's only 15 months younger than Morgan. So he was 16 at the time, and he had been left home by himself in Michigan. And they're tight. They're like best friends. Oh. And he was at work and couldn't have his phone. And so I couldn't get a hold of him. And then when I did get a hold of him, I didn't have the heart to tell him how bad it was, because he was by himself.
Oh my goodness.
So my mom actually drove from Illinois to Michigan overnight, got them a flight, and the accident happened on Saturday night, and they were there by Monday morning to the ICU.
Oh, yay. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So then what happens next? She passes the swallow test, and then Morgan, you're still not remembering anything. What was the decision, or did you have to do more tests?
Yeah, so they did MRIs. I mean, basically the first 72 hours were the toughest, because we had to make sure that there was not continued swelling or bleeding on the brain, because they would have had to go in and relieve the pressure on the brain. So that's what we were praying for, specific prayers. I was doing Facebook updates every day for friends, family, and then she has a ton of fans. I mean, we would, have our phones off, and we would turn them back on, and there would be 200 private messages. What's going on? What's happening? And we couldn't keep up with it. Right. So we just did a daily update to let everybody know what was going on.
Mhm.
So once she passed the swallow study and there was no continued swelling on the brain or bleeding, we were blessed with that. Nothing else. It didn't get worse. We were able to go into a regular room. So she was in ICU for 4 days, and then we were in a regular room for 8 days. And during that time, they sent in PT, OT, speech. They were trying to do word associations with her, but she was nailing it every time. Like, she was, ball, bat, see, all the things that, word associations and but she was still very combative, and very frustrated that she couldn't get out of bed on her own.
Oh.
And then it starting to realize, and she doesn't remember it, but she was starting to realize that her right side of her body didn't work.
Mm.
And so that was a very tough thing.
Mm.
And then, and we had a doctor that said, oh, she doesn't need to go into inpatient rehab. She'll be all right. You can just take her home. And I was like, pretty sure that's not what we're going to do. So we got a care plan, a person in charge of our care plan. I set up the transport. We had some gracious fans and friends from the rookies class of 79, which support injured riders in flat track. And they raised the money to pay for the medical transport for us to go from Georgia to Michigan. And then they
Wow.
also raised the money for me to be able to stay in the hotel right next to Mary Free Bed
Oh
for
my
30 days once we got
gosh.
to Grand Rapids.
Is that the rehab facility?
Yeah,
Okay.
Mary Free Bed. That's where she spent the first 30 days of
Okay.
her rehab.
Oh my gosh, that's remarkable. There's so many
Mm-hmm.
themes here. There's advocating
Yeah.
to the doctors who you don't agree
Yeah.
with. And then there's
Right.
the support of a community making the
Oh, yeah.
donations. Oh my gosh, this is so touching. I have chills.
Mm. I know.
Okay,
Me
so
too.
woo. Okay, so now Morgan, you're conscious of what's going on. You arrive at the rehab facility. Can you take it from there, please?
Well, I gotta be honest with you, my memory is still not great when we got there. We got there, it was 12 days after the accident, which was right before Thanksgiving. So we had our own little Thanksgiving, dinner in my room and stuff like that. And then it was just kind of into daily therapy. I would have my occupational therapist come in the morning and wake me up at like 6 or 6:30 in the morning, help me shower, help me brush my hair, help me get dressed. And then it would be time for PT, and then I would do speech. And then it was just, like hour or 30-minute sessions back to back all day. I would get a lunch and then be done. And the first few weeks that I was there, I wasn't able to, leave the hospital either, because it wasn't really all that safe for me, because I had my arm from the broken shoulder, the scapula that I had. My arm was kind of like separating here if I didn't have it in the sling, because I didn't really have the active muscles to hold it in. So I had to have my arm in a sling. So I couldn't really use the wheelchair by myself because I only had one arm and one leg. So I just would sort of go in a circle if I tried to do it by myself.
Oh my
And
goodness.
then it was like a horrible winter. We got so much snow and so much crazy weather at that time too, so it wasn't really safe to be out anyway. So I was just kind of there for the first few weeks, and every day kind of just seemed to run together.
Mm.
I made really good progress while I was there. I got an AFO for my legs, so I was able to start walking without foot drop. And I would take walks around down the hallways and into different, departments, go to the lobby, go to the cafeteria and stuff like that. And I really had the most trouble with my arm and my hand and my fingers, especially. And I think the broken shoulder, I don't think that helped at all, because of the way that I had to have my arm in a sling for a while, just for it to heal. So that really set it back. It kind of gave it the first few weeks of the injury, instead of being able to jump right on it and be able to work on it and start, rehabilitating it. It was just having to be kind of just stationary for a while. And And that just kind of set it back a little bit. Plus, there's a lot more fine motor skills that go into moving your hand and your fingers than what does when you're, your leg trying to walk. So that was a lot easier.
So Morgan, can you take us to that moment when you were in the therapy and you were having a tough time and someone encouraged you, and that was like a pivotal moment in your life?
Well, I had this occupational therapist. Her name was Jennifer, and she really touched my heart while I was there. She would take me on like field trips. We went and I was obsessed for a while about getting my nails done, because I don't remember when it was or like why it happened or whatever, but I just noticed my nails on my fingers, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I have to get my nails done. Like, this looks, this is horrible. Like, I need to get a manicure. Like, what? Why? I can't believe you guys are letting me walk around like this.
Oh my goodness.
And so it was probably only a couple days later I went and got my nails done with Jennifer, but that was our therapy session, because she helped me wheel myself down it was just like a block or two away from the hospital, I think, and it was before it had started snowing and whatever, but wheeled myself down the sidewalk, and then we got lunch on the way there. So I was learning, trying to thumb through my purse and my wallet with my right hand. Everything was my right hand for the longest time. I had to be reminded all the time, because I just wanted to do something easy, but I had to practice, and I had to just do it to be able to do it again. So got my nails done, and then we did a bunch of different stuff, and she just always knew like how to interact with me, like she knew if I was ready to go get it that day, and she knew if I just needed a break. And I thank God every day that I had her.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So now let's move to your improvement and how this experience inspired your education, your career, and this great mission you have to help other people.
Well, people would tell me all the time while I was in therapy, and like as I was progressing, and they'd be like, oh, you should be a physical therapist someday. You'd be so good at it. And while I was doing therapy like that for myself and like rehabilitating from my own like serious injury, I was like, no, I am not doing this. I don't ever want to be in a therapy clinic like this. I don't want to ever be around this again. This sucks. I don't want to do it. And then I got out of it, and I realized myself how much I had learned and how much I enjoyed learning about it, because I just think the human body is really interesting. And then especially all of the personal experience and like the connections that I made myself, I'm like, man, I think I would be really good at that. And so it took me a little bit to want to do that. It was probably well, so I graduated high school 6 months after the accident, 7 months after the accident. And then I didn't go to school. I didn't start school that fall, but I started in the winter. So it took me like 6 months after graduating high school to decide that that's what I wanted to do.
But wait, you recovered, you regained the ability to walk. And the function that you hadn't had before, you regained that, and your brain was starting to function with more clarity, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, okay, then you decide.
I decide that I want to be, at first I thought maybe physical therapist, but then I thought about Jennifer, and I was like, man, I'd like to touch somebody's heart like she did someday. I want to be somebody's Jennifer. And so I decided I want to be occupational therapist. I don't want to just help somebody learn how to walk, but I want to help them learn how to brush their teeth and, get dressed and, read the room. If I walk in their room and they are in a bad mood, I'll just take them to get a sandwich or hot chocolate, and we'll just do something that way. But it's so much more than just like worrying about what's going on physically. It's so important to just like, to look at a person and see, you don't need physical therapy today. You need a brain day. Like you need an hour that you'll just have somebody sit and talk to you. And it's not all about, your accident and what happened to you. I needed sometimes just a break.
Wow, that's awesome. So then you got your degree. That was a triumphant moment.
Yep, I just graduated last month. I just graduated with my bachelor's degree. So I just got it from University of Michigan Flint. Go Wolverines.
Go blue.
And so I'm gonna take a little bit of time off before I get into grad school, just to take a little break, in between different degrees, and then the occupational therapy program.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. That's amazing. Mom, how are you feeling about all this?
Great. I couldn't be more proud.
That is beautiful. What a triumphant story. And the fact that you physically recovered from that traumatic experience for your body. So now the two of you are on an amazing mission to help other people in a variety of ways. Can you both please talk about Morgan's Place? What will that be? What will that do? How do you make it happen?
Sure. So I made a post on LinkedIn for Morgan. I congratulated her for her graduation, and I thought, I'm just going to tell a little bit of her story. Maybe 30, 40 people will be interested. Mm-hmm. And she got 6.5 million views on that post, and almost 200, and almost 200,000 reactions and 11,000 comments. But with that, I received about 2,500 personal messages of people telling their story. And so as a result of that, we have decided to form a not-for-profit called Morgan's Place. And our goal is to raise funds to be able to help people in the way that we were helped, because we saw people lose their homes because they couldn't afford to pay for their child's therapy. And they had to actually move into the room at Mary Free Bed and live there with their child after a horrific accident. We were blessed because we had fans, right? She had fans that supported her and raised funds for us. And so our goal is to start a facility where people can come after they get out of inpatient rehab, and they can spend 3 to 6 months there, however long they need, and they can get alternative medicine, PT, OT, speech, yoga, acupuncture, emotional counseling, and wraparound services for the whole family, because that's something we realized that we were really lacking in this process. Mm-hmm. And so we want to be able to provide that for people. And we're hoping that some people who feel passionate about it will come alongside us and will support these families as they go through these recoveries.
Wow. One thing you talked about was the trauma, the emotional trauma, and how there were no resources there to assist you in overcoming that, even though it was 5 years ago. That doesn't really leave you. So can you talk about the importance of being able to provide that?
Oh, absolutely. For about the first 3 years, there was not a day that went by that I didn't relive that accident in my mind. Mm-hmm. And we were never provided counseling. It was never even really suggested. It was kind of like, let's just do this rehab. And they didn't even expect her to do any further rehab outside of inpatient rehab, except for outpatient, 3 times a week. Well, I took 3 months off of work, and her and I went to Florida in an RV, and we did 9 hours of rehab 6 days a week for 3 months.
Wow.
And after we got back to Michigan and I went back to work, she went to work with a personal trainer, an OT that we had to pay out of pocket for. I mean, it took a good 1.5 years for her to get to where she is today physically. Wow. But emotionally, I don't think we'll ever be the same. No. And I recognize that as a mother, and then I recognize that in myself, my husband, my son, our whole family has been affected by this. Mm-hmm. And so if people could get those resources at a time like they need, then they may not have to relive that every day for 3 years like I did. Wow. They may find ways to work through it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important too for people to be, the drive to go to Morgan's Place one day will be all the things that we have to for physical rehabilitation, but I want to let people know that they need therapy. Like, I want people to just, I don't want to just like say, oh, you might, this might be a good idea or whatever, but like, I want to let people know that they will need it, and like that it's okay to need that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The mental counseling, the emotional counseling, all of that stuff. I was so worried about getting my body back that I didn't even think about my brain. And my brain
Wow.
was the reason that I didn't have my body at that time. So it's
Oh.
just, there was so many things in my way, that I wasn't thinking about myself mentally. And
Mm-hmm.
then, 4 years later, it hits me like a brick, and I'm like, man, like, I should have been working on that a long time ago. But, it I guess it just, the dust settles, and then you realize what you're left with, and then you know where you got to go. But
Mm-hmm.
I just want Morgan's Place to be somewhere that people are comfortable, and that they know that they can get any kind of help that they need.
Mm-hmm. And that help includes some really fun things. I think you mentioned horses and yoga and all kinds of things. Can you elaborate on that, Morgan?
Yeah, we want to, we've tossed around the idea about doing therapy with horses. We know that there's research out there about that being good with, emotional therapy. And then also just, I mean, when I was going through therapy, we we made everything therapy. I would help cook, I would help do everything is therapy with the right mindset, right? So I would clean the house, I would help clean the house, do laundry. I mean, all kinds of yard work, like everything's therapy with the right mindset. So, I mean, think about a horse barn. There's a lot of different things in a horse barn that
Mm-hmm.
need taken care of, and
Mm-hmm.
it's all therapy. Not that we want to
Mm-hmm.
recruit people just to muck the stalls, but everything, but everything can be turned into that. And then plus that's a huge, even just petting horses and walking with them and
Right.
playing with them. I mean, it's all
Yes.
good stuff. And then hopefully
Beautiful.
maybe a pond, do some swimming and some kayaking and yoga, and I just have so many beautiful ideas.
I love it. I love it. So if there's anybody watching right now who wants to help, how can they get in touch with you?
Mom, you know that one?
Yes. So they can text Morgan's Place, all one word, to 44321, and that will bring up a donation page. And the other thing that they can do is they can email info.morgansplace@gmail.com. And we do have a beautiful website that will be launched here in a couple weeks. So people will be able to like see everything come to life right along with us. We're very excited.
Oh, this is awesome. I'll put that information in the description box so people can get in touch
Thank
with you.
you.
You're welcome if they'd like to make a donation or participate in some way.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. I
oh, you're
appreciate
so
that.
welcome. This is an amazing story, so inspiring. What would each of you like to tell any families who are going through something like this, especially at the early stages when they get the terrible prognosis, when there's a struggle, when they don't know if things will work out as beautifully as they have for you?
What I learned from just from physical rehabilitation is that there's always hope for tomorrow to be better than today was.
Mm.
So when I was trying to learn how to use my hand again, I didn't know how to do it today, but after a while I learned that tomorrow I'm probably going to know what I need to do now. Like I couldn't do something today, but tomorrow I probably can. And
Mhm.
just keeping that faith and that hope that, like tomorrow will be better.
Mhm. Love that. Love that. And
For
Dr.
me,
Monroe? Mhm.
yeah, for me, I just want people to know that there's people out there like us that truly care. We
Oh.
want to see people get better. We want to see families be able to come together. We want to be able to give them a hug. We want to be able to cook them dinner. There's people out there that truly, truly care, and not just us. We've been blessed to come to know so many people in the field, and she was involved with student clinics at universities and professors who took an interest in her rehabilitation. And that was all pro bono work. You know, they didn't have to do that. They did it because they cared. And
Wow.
so that's the most important message that I want to get out to people, is that there are people that really care and have been through it and can help. You know, you just have to be able to reach out.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. And let's also remember the power of prayer.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. We wouldn't be sitting here with you today if it was not for that.
Beautiful. Oh, I'm so happy talking with both of you and having the honor of sharing your inspiring story and mission with everybody who's watching. So
Thank you.
thank you, Dr. Monroe. Thank you, Morgan Monroe. I really immensely appreciate you joining me here on the Goddess Power Show.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And we hope to join you again someday.
I hope so. Thank you so very much. When you open Morgan's Place.
Yes.
That's right.
Groundbreaking.
Awesome. We'll have to do on location, a special.
That's right.
Go.
Ribbon. We'll let you cut the ribbon, baby.
That's awesome. I wish you the absolute best. So please keep in touch.
Thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
do.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye. Hold on. Don't go.
Okay.
And thank you, all of you, for joining us here on the Goddess Power Show, where you got to meet Dr. Carey Monroe and her daughter Morgan Monroe as they shared their harrowing journey after the motorcycle accident, their road to recovery, and the beautiful, thankfully happy ending to their story and this wonderful mission to help others. So please do give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter at Elizabeth Atkins, and remember, boss up, goddess. You have the power. See you next time.